Hi, let's start the class. I don't think any more people are going to join. So did you guys get a chance to look at or hear the videos on litigation, IP, insurance?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you guys have any doubts in that? Anything that you want to ask your some part where you didn't understand anything?
Good evening, ma'am. I haven't been keeping well, which is why I haven't been able to see the videos.
Okay, Richa,
Yeah,
did you get a chance to look at all the videos? Have you completed the
yeah,
videos?
yeah, I did.
Okay. Did you have any doubts? Anything to
No,
ask?
no.
Okay. Varun?
No, ma'am, I also don't have any doubt.
Okay. Good. So I guess the videos were quite well made that you guys have no doubts. Okay. I just want to share some personal experience with respect to all these chapters. Um, insurance sounds to be a very simple chapter, but it's the chapter that you will get to do as an intern the most. Uh, because it's an easy chapter, so that's the chapter that associates will always delegate you to do. But you need to be very diligent, okay, while you're doing insurance chapter. It seems very easy and it is very easy, but be very careful with the numbers that you are writing. I've seen people missing the commas. I've seen people 1 लाख को 1,000 कर दिया, 1 करोड़ को 1 लाख कर दिया. So don't make those mistakes while you're doing insurance or any chapter for that matter. There are particular formats that any law firm follows, right? So they may write in the million billion format. So be very careful that you follow the format and don't write like 1 lakh if they're following that million billion format. Because if you do not follow the format, whatever you have profile will actually go for waste because the associate will then have to do everything, right? So be careful of these formatting things that a law firm follows. Ask them if you do not know. Ask them and then follow it. Insurance may again be careful with the numbers. Be careful with what's insured, and also be careful if the policy is in existence or not, or if it has expired. Okay, if it has expired, you know what to do. You have to ask. If they have renewed it or not. And if they have not, then you need to say that they need to renew it as a condition precedent, right? Then with respect to litigation, okay, I know a lot of people are doing litigation over here. The way we summarize litigation for a corporate or for a legal diligence report is different as opposed to while you're like summarizing it for maybe a court proceeding. It's not you're not making a list of dates and events which ideally a litigation lawyer prepares. It's one of the most important document actually that you prepare in litigation, right? Which is your list of dates and events, because it gives you the entire story or the picture of the litigation. But that is not what is required in a litigation chapter for a legal diligence, because your client is not interested to know that. So you're not going to give him something to read which is of no importance or is of no interest to him. Okay. Always remember you're there to facilitate the transaction. So your report should also be very crisp and to the point, right? So you need to basically highlight the summary or the crux of the litigation, like why was it even initiated, either by the target company or against the target company. Okay. At what stage it is at, whether if any interim order has been passed or not in that particular litigation, right? If there is any recent hearings, check if that hearing date has passed or not. Ask for the current status. It's very important to know the current status. Okay, and also don't make the mistake of giving your opinion about whether you think the case is going to win or not. Okay, because that is really not the objective of a litigation chapter. Sometimes it is such that the client yourself will ask for an opinion. Okay, that time also, usually what happens in law firms is not the corporate team ideally does not give an opinion. It is either the litigation team or maybe like they go to judge ex judges or arbitrators to get an opinion. Like that's how it really works. And it's not every time you need to do it. If there is a high profile case, if there is a case whether it like the outcome of it the outcome of it, like the existence or the operation of the company is dependent on the outcome of that litigation. It's when really the clients seek an opinion on the success of that litigation. So those are the things. So like, because you have a litigation background, or you know that whether or not this is going to be a successful or a failure, but don't give that in the report. Okay. uh, it's not really appreciated. Also, every law firm has their own DD format. Okay. They all have their, I mean, even in law firms between partners, they have their own DD format. Okay. Like they like to present it in a certain manner, and they want to profile it in a certain manner. Okay. See, the principles of it are going to be the same. Like how you look at a document, what are the important things in a document is going to be the same, but how they present it might be different. Okay. So be careful of that. Do follow the presentation, do follow the formatting rules of that particular team. Okay. Be careful with spellings, be careful with the grammar. Don't spend too much time on profiling unnecessary things. Like for example, in litigation, I remember the one of my colleague, he was new, and that was his first litigation. That was his first due diligence. He spent a lot of time on like creating a list of dates and events, and then he went on and gave in detail which district court, judge's name, and all of that. Like he had profiled it like that. I mean, they were like completely unnecessary details and a complete waste of time. So don't fall into the trap of doing that while you're doing litigation. Okay, be right, because in litigation the number of papers is going to be quite a lot, like voluminous numbers. Sometimes like that number of litigation papers do not even fit in the VDR because they do not have the time to scan and upload so many papers on VDR. So they will courier it to you separately. Like we have had clients couriering us the litigation papers, right? But even if they're like 1,000 pages and all of that, your litigation needs to be crisp. The summary needs to be crisp. Okay. Then of course there is IP. Uh, IP, like I think it's quite self-explanatory on what are the things that you need to see and how to go about it. IP is like it becomes a extensive, like it's an immovable asset, right? I mean, sorry, it's a intangible asset, right, of a company. So if it's a IP intensive company, or it has a lot of IPs, like a pharma company or a software company, right? For them, the main asset is IP. Okay, so then that chapter becomes a very crucial or key chapter, like more than anything, like that is the chapter that will determine. For example, I was doing, we were talking about my client wanted to acquire a software company, which was doing AI, right? So there were negotiations and we were structuring in the entire deal and all of that. But he had, on our recommendation, he had done an IT diligence on the AI, right? So what was the IT diligence? It's basically to test the AI, whether the AI is working or whether it's giving the results or not, right? But before you're even like my client's IT analysis team was even allowed access to this AI, there is a ironclad NDA that is signed, okay, so that no information goes out. So it's very important in our diligence that you have that NDA in place, that to ensure that nothing is going out. Okay, but in that IT diligence, it was found that the AI was lagging. Like there was a huge lag, and the results were not 100% accurate. Okay, it was giving some 60% accuracy, which was not something that my client was looking at that point. And that is where the deal fell through, because the product itself was something that did not pass the test. Okay, so these are the things that you need to keep in mind in pharma. More than anything, what really matters is their patents. It's a very, very patent intensive sector. So you need to look at all the patents, any international, any international agreements they have signed, where all they have got that patent. So these are the things that you need to keep in mind, okay, or need to check, okay. Now let's come to approvals, licenses, and consents. Okay. The self-paced videos are going to be uploaded today, but since it is quite a complex chapter, we thought that it's better that I take a class on it before and introduce you to the subject, because I think that was one of the feedbacks that sometimes you don't like. You would prefer a class before the video. So that's why we thought that, and since this is the last part of it, we thought we will do it this way for this particular leg. Okay. So, have any of you in your internships, Pius is not there, right? Okay. Have any of you in your internships, working experience, anything, have you ever come across doing labor laws or environmental laws, like giving an opinion or anything like a practical exposure to these subjects?
Label, no, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What was your research on?
ma'am, it was related to women in the company when she was. It was a issue of pregnancy when she was on probation period. She was terminated due to the company finding out that she was pregnant.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
Like practical experience in working in these subjects.
I mean, like just Shruti said, that's an extent of research that she has done in labor law. So, like, did you like?
Actually, yeah, I'm working in IT sector, IPR sector.
Okay, so you do not have an encounter with the labor law. You are somebody who helps startups, right? You are working with the incubator.
I'm with IIT Delhi.
Yes. So, do you help making labor law policies and all of that?
Uh, Policies, no, but filings and all that. Just consulting in a way. There are many startups, so we have to consult them and how they can go about, how they can draft, and helping them draft also. And those type like an IPR return.
Okay. Okay. So, it's actually one of the most Varun, do you have any encounter with labor laws? Varun Rahman?
Oh,
I have I have attended few cases. matlab, I have also pleaded before the industrial tribunal regarding with relation to Industrial Disputes Act. So it was an appeal against the order of the labor inspector, which is an executive body. So I had pleaded before the industrial tribunal that few persons they were terminated against the companies. In violation of the terms and conditions of the recruitment policy of the company. So in that case, these were few cases which I have dealt with.
Okay. Rahman?
yeah, I was doing an internship quite some time back, and we had a over enthusiastic company which wanted to comply with the labor codes when they were introduced. Apart from that, I dealt with one case, like Varun mentioned. I was not actively involved, but yes, with advisory involvement.
So did you make the policies as per the labor codes?
They only wanted to know if their existing policy was complying in some way or the other.
But it doesn't, right? Because it changes quite a lot. I mean, they
Yes,
have
and
introduced a lot more categories than the existing categories.
yes, and they were unhappy about it. They didn't want to bring in so many changes to.
But I mean, the word is it will come in 2024, not like no way, like even 2024 after the elections, and you still don't know when.
Yes,
Anyways,
it's been usually companies are quite reluctant when it comes to these things. So
yes, I mean they're changing the structure of PF and gratuity as well. So there's going to be a huge fight over that, as and when it if it ever comes into effect. But unlikely because the way different laws faced protest, it's unlikely how it's going to be interesting to see how they implement labor codes because it's fundamentally changing a lot of the basic salary structure and all of that. So it's going to directly affect women.
also there's a few clashes with the definitions in a few places, meaning if a particular profession is defined in a particular manner, then in a
Yeah,
code it is again defined in a separate manner.
yeah. But I think they are working on all of that. I think they will make it a harmonious act because that was the idea, right? That is why they got in labor codes. Anyways, so let's begin this chapter, okay? Um, See why this chapter is one of the most important chapters or one of the most complex chapter is uh, it gives you the authority or the licenses to conduct business. Okay, so whenever you're doing a business, a particular business, okay, you have to take certain approvals, you have to take certain consents, you have to take certain permissions. Okay, uh, that is what gives you permission, or that is how your business is compliant with the laws. Okay, and it becomes because there are so many laws, not only state, there are central laws, there are not only central but there are state laws as well. Okay, so like different states will have its individual certain very certain laws which you can only find in that particular state. Okay, it does not have a counterpart in any other state maybe, or it has a counterpart in few states, but not every state will have a law like that. Okay, so so it is very important. For example, uh, Maharashtra does not allow operations of Rapido or bike taxis because according to them, there is a high court judgment as well. According to them, it is the Rapido structure or the way it's operating. It's in violation of the RTO regulations. Okay, so let's say you're doing a diligence and you see it's a Rapido or a bike taxi operating in Maharashtra. You know that it is not allowed. Okay, Maharashtra, that operation itself is not allowed. So this is how important your approvals and licenses are. Okay, um, like uh, and it really doesn't, like, if you think that only big companies or MNCs will fall under this and only they have to acquire the consents and approvals, that's actually incorrect. Because if you see, even roadside vendors who are selling vada pav and pav bhaji and all of that, uh, even they have to take FSSI license because they are selling food. Okay. Uh, how good that license is, it's a separate conversation, and whether or not that license is even able to ensure hygiene is again a separate conversation. but they're supposed to take that license. If like even like a small roadside vendor is required to obtain that license. Okay. And if it doesn't obtain, it has, of course, its penalties and consequences. So that is how important is your consents and licenses. Now, this is divided into basically three categories. Okay. One is your labor law consents, then is your environmental consents, and then is your industry consents. Okay. Labor law is to do with employees. Uh, when you're hiring employees, you have to comply with certain labor laws, and we will look at that. Uh, when you're opening a company or a factory or something like that, you're impacting the environment. So to protect the environment and to ensure that you are working in accordance to the environmental laws, there are certain consents and authorizations. Okay. And then there are industrial consents. Industrial consents is like Factories Act, like uh, licenses pertaining to the operation of your industry. For example, Factories Act, Shops and Establishment Act, Petrol Act, uh, Boilers Act. Understand me? So, like things to do with the industry and the operations on the running of the industry, that is categorized as your industrial consents. Now, some law firms divides this into labor laws and industrial consents as one chapter and environmental laws as a separate chapter. Some law firms does club all the consents in one chapter. Okay. So there is no really hard and fast rule, or there is no correct format, as I said in the beginning. It genuinely depends on how a particular law firm wants to, present it. So there is no hard and fast rule to it. But since we are learning it, it is all clubbed under this particular section of the video. Okay. Now let's look at labor laws. Okay. Um, One of the first thing, which Rahman said, uh, and which we were discussing right now was on labor codes. One of the most this thing is people think that labor codes are into effect because it has been passed and it's published on the official gazette as well, but it's not into effect. Can anybody tell me why labor code is still not into effect?
Maybe because the industries are not able to cope with the clubbing, the consolidation of the numerous laws that were there.
No. Anyone else? Rahman, why is the labor codes not into effect?
I don't recall, ma'am.
Maybe related to the union.
No. No. Uh,
Is it because
whenever
of the rules?
that is where it is getting stuck because all the states have not come out with the rules. But why it is not into effect is if you read the line, it says that um, it will come into effect as and when the central government notifies its date of effect. Okay. That is how Companies Act also came into effect. Though it was published and it was there in the Gazette and everything, it was notified much later. For that matter, a particular section with respect to IBC got notified as late as 2019. Okay, that section of 2013 Act was not into operation, was not into effect, and you had to refer back to the 56 Act because that was still into effect. Okay. So you need to be careful of this, and you need to know when an act is coming into effect. Uh, as and when the central government will notify a date, that is when labor code or any act will come into effect. Okay. The way to look at it is, or to know that whether or not it's into effect is to look at the gazette. So there are state gazette websites and there are central government gazette website. That is where you will know that it's brought into effect. Okay. If you look at the Companies Act, I'm forgetting the section numbers, but if you look at certain sections, they always tell you that it's effective from this date. Even when you look at the footings for, let's say, amendments, okay, they will also tell you that it is effective from this date. So this becomes very important to understand. And remember this point because we will be discussing something related to this point later on. Okay. Now, coming to labor laws, there are three things that determines which law is applicable to a particular company. Can anyone tell me what are the things that determine what will be applicable to a company? Anyone who has touched labor laws or has any exposure to it, you should know this.
What kind of employees constitute the company? The structure of the organization, the business structure it is following, the nature of work it is indulged into.
Okay. Anyone else? Varun or Rahman, any guesses?
No, man.
Varun?
Ma'am, I didn't get the question. Can you please repeat it again?
So there are certain things, right? Certain conditions that determine whether certain laws, certain labor laws are applicable to a company or not. Uh, for example, you need, like, how will you determine whether a maternity benefit act is applicable to a particular company or not? Like, how do you determine the applicability of it?
So, okay. So, for the case of Maternity Benefit Act, which you said, it will depend upon the nature of the employees. That means the women employees, if the establishment is having women employees or not. So that will determine whether the Maternity Benefit Act will apply or not. And
Okay.
in general, ma'am, it uh, it depends into what in what business or what profession the company is engaged. I mean, if it is engaged in factories, then the Factories Act will apply, and the same goes for uh, the nature of employees. I mean, what type of employees are there? Number of employees. Are they more than 10? Are they more than 100? In Factories Act and in certain labor laws, there is a threshold prescribed beyond which there are some steps which needs to be followed, like some check facilities are to be given to the women and something like that in the Factories Act or in the Industrial Disputes Act. I mean, so if a factory or a establishment is having certain number of people, then they have to provide certain facilities to the employees. So these may be the determining factors which will.
Can be like
Correct.
occupational safety like hazardous and not. Then wages and the industrial relations, like what type of company structure they are following.
Right. See, labor laws, Varun, if I divide it into categories, Factories Act will come into your industrial concerns. Okay? Because see, some law firms might take it under labor laws as well, but if I look at it in that sense, it really is to do with the operation of the industry. So I would take it under the category of industrial concerns. Okay? Now, labor law will always depend on three things primarily, whether or not a particular act is applicable. First is, as all of you said, is the number of employees. Okay. What is the number of employees that a company is having, right? Why? Because certain certain labor laws will have like certain labor law says that it is applicable only if it has 10 employees or 12 employees, or it's attracted if it has uh, it gets attracted if it has women employees. Okay, it's very interesting to read the definition of employees in Maternity Benefit Act or POSH for that matter. So a lot of people thinks that POSH is only attracted when there are women employees, but that's not actually true. It says 10 employees, and that is irrespective of gender. So if you have 10 employees working in a unit, it gets attracted. Okay, so you need to be careful of this, as when a particular what is the definition of employees, like is it a gender neutral definition, or like is it something that is it like not a gender neutral definition? Okay, so you need to be careful of that. The other thing that all of you missed was the state in which a company is operating. Okay, why? Because as I said earlier on only, um, state will always has certain states have certain peculiar rules which are becomes applicable. For example, Maharashtra has something called rent, uh, payment of rent. I'm forgetting the name of the entire act, but it's payment of rent allowance act. Uh, Similar to that, sorry, I do not remember the entire name right now, but that is a very typical act of Maharashtra, and it is there only in Karnataka. It is not there in West Bengal or Jharkhand. So you need to know this. Plus, there is, of course, as you said, there is nature of company also. What is the operation that the company is carrying out? Depending on that as well, the labor laws get attractive. Now, labor laws also is very interesting. Why? Because labor laws has state rules, same act. Let's say maternity benefit, because this is the act that you guys highlighted. Let's say there is maternity benefit act. So there is a central rule for it, and there is a state rule for it. Shruti, were you aware that there is a central rule and a state rule under this act?
Yes, ma'am, I looked into it, but it was long back, so I don't remember the details.
Can anyone tell me why labor laws has central rules or state rule, or why both the governments are able to legislate on this?
I believe it is in the concurrent list.
Correct. So it is in the concurrent list. Okay. Now, how will you know whether the state rule is applicable or whether the central rule is applicable? Anyone? See, if you're doing a diligence, or if you're giving an opinion on um, if you're giving an opinion on labor laws, this is very important to understand. Okay, and this is something I was completely unaware of. So, um, this was my first diligence way back, and I had looked at the wrong rule for compliance, um, and I was badly scolded, like real bad. That you know, once you start working in law firms, you will know how bad the scoldings can get. Um, but yeah, so this is quite important to know in terms of figuring out compliances. Okay. So anyone, any guesses?
The general rule is that if any state hasn't enacted its specific enactment regarding that subject, then the central law will apply. But if a state government has enacted its enacted the law for that purpose, then the the state act will apply unless it is contrary, any of its provision is contrary to the central act. And that, the things get tricky that if that a particular provision is contrary to the central act, then the thing, if someone challenges that, then the thing will go to the court, and then the court will struck it down. I mean, if it has been proved that the thing is contrary to the central act, then the uh, central provision will prevail. But if it's not contrary to the central provision, then the state provisions will, they will go on. So if a state has enacted the law on that particular subject, then state act will be followed, and if the state hasn't enacted, then the central act will be followed.
Anyone agrees with that?
Yes, ma'am.
This is just a general thing. Anybody knows how the host can enable sharing?
There's the option, share screen option on the
Yeah.
screen.
Okay. This is a general thing, Shruti, and everybody. Okay, whenever you are putting something in your CV, please ensure that you know it inside out. Because they can ask you anything on it. So, be very this thing of what you are writing, putting in your CV. Okay, don't say कि मैंने ये बहुत साल पहले किया था, so now I don't remember, because they expect you to remember. Okay, and this is for everyone, not just Shruti. Wait, let me just share my screen. I'm just trying to do that. So this is Contract Labor Act. Okay, now if you go to section 35, which talks about power to make rules. Okay. So what does it say? It says the appropriate government may, subject to the conditions of previous publication, make rules for carrying the purposes of this act. Right. So essentially it is saying that it is the appropriate government which has the right to make the rules. Correct? Now let's go to the definition of appropriate government. Appropriate government means in relation to an establishment in respect of which appropriate government under the industrial dispute is the central government, Okay, in relation to any other establishment, the government of the state in which that other establishment is situated. So, how will you, anybody understood what it means? Can somebody explain what it means? You can take 5 minutes to read it and explain what it means. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Huh. So what does this mean? What is the definition trying to say?
Ma'am, I think it's referring to the number of employees. Like if it exceeds a certain number, then the central government comes in. And if it's less than that, then the state government.
Anybody else?
I mean, in the Industrial Disputes Act itself, some establishments are dictated where they have provided that here the appropriate government means the central government, and in rest of the cases where in whichever state the establishment is situated, that particular government will be the appropriate government.
Correct. So Shruti, it does not really. Richa, do you have anything to contribute, Richa Rahman?
No, ma'am.
Uh,
No.
so yes, Rahman. So who do you think is correct in the interpretation?
Varun?
Varun and Shruti has given different interpretations. So whom do you think is correct?
Varun?
Correct. Shruti, it does not talk about number of employees over here, right? It's saying in relation to an establishment in respect of which the appropriate government under the Industrial Disputes Act is central government, any other establishment, government or state. Okay. So you need to go back to the IDA to figure out for what establishment central government is the appropriate government. Okay, so let's go to the IDA Act. See, this is Industrial Disputes Act. Okay, uh, one of the toughest labor law acts, and a lot of case law is a very interesting act. I don't think colleges are teaching. I mean, there are so many students who are very scared of labor laws as well. So yeah. Anyways, so appropriate government. Okay, so now you see, in relation to any industrial dispute concerning any industry carried on by the authority of central government or by a railway company, or in relation to an industrial dispute concerning dock labor board established under 5A. Okay, so if you keep on going reading, you will understand that these are the establishments, okay, that are governed by the central government. For example, see, air transport service or banking service or a mine or an oil field, okay. So these, or a port, okay. So these are all which are going to be governed by the central government, okay. So what does it essentially mean? What is it that I'm trying to come to at? Let's say you are doing a due diligence of a mine, okay, coal mine, okay. So what rule do you think will get applicable under Contract Labor Act? Contract Labor Act also has state rules as well as central rules, okay. So you are doing a diligence of a mine, let's say. So to understand the compliances, which rule will you look at? Will you look at the central rule for contract labor, or will you look at the state rules?
Ma'am, aren't the state rules and central rules meant to complement each other in a way that where the state is missing, the central rules take precedence?
Okay, okay, that is your answer. Anybody else? Shruti, Varun, Richa?
Uh, Here, I think the central legislation will be looked because mine is defined here in this definition.
Shruti,
Yes, ma'am.
Richa,
According to me, state,
state. Why?
because of the jurisdiction and the location, the mine happens in that particular state. Either state or concurrent. I'm confused between the two.
Okay. Varun, why did you say central? And why do you think Rahman is wrong?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think Rahman is wrong. He has said in a different context. I mean, I said mine because
No, no, no. I have asked all of you in the same context. So your answer has to be in that context. It cannot have a different connotation. So either you think Rahman is wrong or you think he's correct. So you first tell me whether he's wrong or whether he's correct.
what has Rahman? Could you please once again repeat? What did you say?
मैम टू एन एक्सटेंट आप स्टूडेंट्स में लड़ाई लगा रही हैं.
आपका प्रोफेसर ही लड़ाई वाला है, मैं तो फिर भी ये स्टूडेंट है.
I said that uh, central rules take precedence over state rules where state rules have not specified something.
Yes, yes, that is correct. I mean, the central rule is always the superior rule. I mean, this any subject which is in a concurrent list, both state and center can make the rules, but the precedence is always given to the central rule if the state rule violates the central rule. So in that way, he is right. The central rule will prevail only if for the same thing the state rule is in violation for that specific thing. Then the central rule will of course prevail.
Okay. Shruti, do you think Rahman is correct?
Ma'am, the question you asked was like mine will be coming under which central or state control, right? So,
State rule or central rule? Who will be the appropriate government to make rules for mine?
yes,
As per
reading the language of this section, I made out that mine would come under central control, central government.
So you think Rahman is incorrect?
What did he specifically say?
Suniye, when your classmates are talking something, listen. You always get a good perspective on things, okay? He said, and what Varun is also agreeing to. Yes, Rahman.
He said that they work in collaboration, state and central.
I mean, Rahman
Yes.
didn't give a straight jacket answer. He hasn't said that will the mine come under central law or the state.
But what he is saying is that if there are two rules which are governing a particular thing, if there are two rules, and if state also has a rule and central also has a rule, then central rules will prevail to the extent that it is not conflicting with the state rules.
Yeah, I agree
So,
to that.
Rahman, in this case, like, how will you go about looking at the compliance? You will first look at the central rules, then again you will look at the state rules and see what is missing and what.
But mining is a state subject,
Where is it written?
like law and order situation and all that, that is under state. So mining comes under state, and then like what he's saying, like when state is not able to control or wherever there are gaps, then central takes the precedence.
Okay. Yes, but Rahman, please, how will you go about looking at the legislation? Like you will do a compare first.
Ma'am, I derived this from my experience with the Stamp Act. So, in cases where states did not have explicit rules or they did not legislate on some part, we used to rely on the central rule. Now, when it comes to due diligence,
You did not rely on central rule. They adopted the central rule. They have to
yes,
adopt
that
it.
is yes, that
You
is
have to look. You
yes,
have to look whether the state has adopted it or not, and if it has passed specific amendments to it or not. So
yes,
you are not automatically relying on it. Huh? There is no automatic application of the central rules.
yes. There has to be either of those, whether a state has accepted the central rules in themselves or they have a separate set for their own use. So depending on
Correct.
that, but then there has to be some understanding of whether the state has legislated on a particular matter or not. Otherwise, it will require you to look at both the places and go through the whole schedule or the set of rules that are attached.
But I'm telling you now, under Contract Labor Act, both the center and the state has its appropriate rules. You want to see? I'll show you.
Can we take numbers of each other so that we stay connected?
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can everybody share on the chat so that whoever wants to?
Yeah, sure.
But this is not your last class.
I know, but somehow on WhatsApp also we are not able to take. So any case we want to chat or discuss something so that among ourselves we can do.
There is the discussion forum
Where?
um, on EBC learning platform.
Okay, we have all numbers
Have
there.
not, uh, but have you not seen that?
No, that I have seen. But otherwise,
Huh.
personal, professional discussion, something we want to ask about, like
Okay.
that way.
I,
Since I think Varun
Sure,
is
you
from
guys
Delhi,
can
and
do.
I'm also from Delhi. I thought we can just get together and just talk about stuff.
I believe there is one
Yes.
WhatsApp group of that sort.
Do we?
Yeah.
Can you include me? I'm just putting my numbers in.
I'm actually not the admin, but I'll get in touch with him. That's not an issue.
Okay, fine. Thank you so
There
much.
is one for the students, just the students.
Yeah, we had a mutiny of our own.
Okay.
Even I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, because
Okay. Anyways, you whoever is in class, you guys can exchange numbers. Okay, that's fine. See, Rahman, the West Bengal contract labor regulation abolition
Pardon, ma'am?
Contract labor regulation abolition, sir. See, these are the two rules, right? Regulation, these are central rules. Okay, contract labor regulation and abolition central rules. Okay, and this is West Bengal contract labor abolition वेस्ट बंगाल. ओके, तो एक स्टेट का है और एक सेंट्रल का है. ठीक है, तो इफ आई if I take your word for it, what you are saying is that you will compare both central and state and figure out the compliances.
Yeah, that has to be one way unless one is aware of both the sides.
ऐसा नहीं है. देखिए, again, let's go back. Maybe you guys, maybe it wasn't clear here. Let's go back to 35. Power to make rules. Rahman and everyone, read this. What does this mean?
So this means that the state government, if it makes rules, will have them
Where is it written state? Where are you reading state over here?
the appropriate government. That will then depend on the circumstances.
How do we decide the appropriate government? Who decides?
Correct. But what is the meaning of this particular line? First, tell me that. Let's break this down. This is very important to understand. Okay, let's break this down. So tell me, what does this mean first?
And what does previous publication signify?
नहीं, आप पहले मुझे इस सेंटेंस का मतलब समझाइए. ये सेंटेंस बोलना क्या चाह रहा है? Previous legislations, everything forget. ये सेंटेंस क्या बोलना चाह रहा है?
Any government can make rule, either state or central.
No.
It empowers the appropriate government to make rules for the given act, for this act.
Correct. So the key word over here is that the appropriate government has the right to make rules for the purposes of this act. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody agrees to this?
Yes, ma'am.
The power to make rules has been entrusted to the appropriate government. So the appropriate government will have the right to make rules under this act for the purposes of this act. Correct? We are all on the same page on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Varun, Richa, we are on the same page on this?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Now, what is an appropriate government? Which is what Richa had asked. Who decides appropriate government? The act will decide appropriate government. See, so, as per this act, if I read the definition of appropriate government, can you see the definition of appropriate government on your screen? Can you guys read the definition of it?
Yes, ma'am.
So what does it mean? Sorry, your voice is not clear. Is anybody trying to say something or is it just background noise?
Ma'am, it just
It
says that in
depends on
the
the type of the establishment. I mean, whatever that does that come under the center or the state. So depending on that establishment, the center and the state involvement will be decided.
Okay. Shruti?
Yes, ma'am, in the Industrial Disputes Act, if the appropriate government is the center, then the central government, and if the establishment is situated in that state, if the central government is not the appropriate government in that case, then the state government.
Rahman?
Ma'am,
Rahman, sorry, are you there?
yes, yes. Under the Industrial Disputes Act, the appropriate government is the central government, and with respect to other such legislation, the appropriate government will be the state government.
Other such legislations or other such establishments?
Other establishments, sorry, other establishments, the government of the state will be ruling them.
Varun?
Yes, ma'am. So all the establishments which are mentioned in the Industrial Disputes Act itself, for them, it is the central government who is the appropriate authority. And all the establishments which are not mentioned in the Industrial Disputes Act, for them, in whichever state they are situated, that particular state will be the appropriate government.
Okay, just 1 second. Okay. Um, Correct. All of you are correct. But let's put it in a better manner. The conclusion of it. Section 35 gives, under the Act, gives the appropriate government the authority to make rules. Okay. To understand who or how the appropriate government is coming into picture, we have to look at the definition of appropriate government. Okay. Now, when we look at the definition of appropriate government, what do we understand? We understand that to define or to figure out which is the appropriate government, we have to look at the establishment. Okay? Because depending on the establishment, the appropriate government is going to be identified. Right? Now, how is this act doing that? It is saying that you will have to first see the Industrial Disputes Act and see under that act what all establishments are getting governed by the central rules. Okay? If an establishment under ID Act is identified to be established to be governed by the central rules, then for the purposes of Contract Labor Act also, that establishment will be governed by the central rule. Meaning, in relation to an establishment in respect of which appropriate government under IDA is central government, the central government. If I go back to industrial dispute, this is the definition of appropriate government. And these are the establishments that is getting defined here. It is saying that a mine or an oil field, okay, if for that the appropriate government is central government. Okay, so for the purposes of contract labor, also a mine gets governed by the central government. So the rules which are made by the central government will become applicable to that establishment. If I am, let's say, an IT company, okay, a software IT company, okay, let's see if that is getting under, if you can, is this part clear? So what Rahman and Varun were saying, that there is going to be a conflict and you need to do a compare and all of that, that is not correct. If the establishment is coming under the definition of appropriate government of if is coming under the definition of this 2A1, or the IDA Act says that it is going to be governed by the central government, then that establishment is going to be governed by the rules which are enacted by the central government. You do not have to look at the state rules then and figure out the lacuna and see which one is standing over what and where is the conflict and how to resolve that conflict and all of that. No. You have to determine what rule is getting applicable to it and you will stick to that rule. You will not look at the state rule. If central rule is applicable, you will not look at the central rule if state rule is applicable. Understood? Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Rahman, Varun, Richa?
Yes, ma'am.
Rahman?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, different rules and different legislations have different principles of application. Okay. Because you have read something in labor laws, in Stamp Act, or that is how the act is getting applicable, may not stand true for other acts. Okay. Richa,
Yeah,
clear? If you have any confusion, you can ask me.
clear, but only one confusion is like Google is throwing that mining is a state subject because
No,
of
you
law
don't
and
need to
order.
look.
So
You don't. you do not need to look at Google.
Yeah.
You're a lawyer. You need to look at bare acts, and you need to read, and you need to be able to read the bare acts and apply the acts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's in the concurrent list.
Yeah.
So there will be rules, which is rules or acts which is made by the state for mines. But mines is not under concurrent list. It's state, it's central if I'm not wrong. Anyways, but this is how you are going to read this. Understood? Don't get Rita, as a thumb rule, don't look at the what are the concurrent rules.
Okay.
Okay? Look at what is the definition of appropriate government is. Because the act is telling you which is going to be governed by the central government and which is going to be governed by the central government. Which establishment is going to be governed by what rule?
Yeah.
Your Industrial Disputes Act. This, right? This is only telling you na, who the appropriate government is. I told you about concurrent union and all of that to explain you why there are two separate rules existing under the same act. For that explanation, I explained you that there is concurrent union and state list. But you do not need to go back to it to figure out which one will be applicable. That is, you do not need to do that. It is established, or the Industrial Dispute Act is already giving you the list of what establishments are going to be governed by the central government and what is going to be, and whatever is not falling in this category will be governed by the state government. Understanding?
Yeah.
Clear?
Yeah.
Everyone, this is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely clear. There is no confusion on this.
No, ma'am.
So let's say there is a IT company. Okay, go through this definition. Okay, go through the definition and tell me whether an IT company is going to be governed by the central rule or the state rule. Tell me when to take the page down. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
shall I scroll it down?
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody else. So basis this, tell me whether an IT company is going to be governed by central rule or state rule.
State rule.
Varun, Richard, Rahman.
Ma'am, the line established by or under any law made by Parliament. I guess it's under center then.
फिर सारी कंपनी सेंट्रल के अंदर नहीं आ जाएंगे?
All crucial services do come under central, so IT comes under state.
Sorry, Richard.
As we can see through the paras, like all crucial companies, like services which are crucial to the country, they come under the central, and IT comes under the state. Like national housing, food corporation, all these things, they are very crucial. They are basic necessity for a country. Defense, cantonment, all these things, if you see, they are under central control.
Yeah, anybody else? Varun or Rahman?
The IT industry will be governed by the central act, central legislation.
Why?
Because going by the definition also says, just a second. The first line says that in relation to any industrial dispute concerning any industry carried on by or under the authority of central government. So IT industry is an industry which is carried on by the central government.
A private limited company or a public limited company is carried on by central government.
Yes, companies are governed by central government, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It is mm, the officers of the central services who deal
Okay,
with
so you're saying
who
it
are
in that
ROCs.
sense. Okay. Rahman?
Ma'am, I'll side with Varun on this. I believe The central government has control over the IT industry.
So then, by that, so then every company is going to be governed by central government.
To an extent, yes.
Why only IT? Why only IT? Then you are saying every company is getting governed by the central government.
No, not every company, ma'am. I mean, all these things boil down to the constitutional lists. Those are central list,
No,
state
no,
list, and concurrent list.
but every company, Varun, if by your logic, every
Hmm.
company will have to take authority under Companies Act to establish, be it IT, be it software, be it anything,
Pharma.
be it a sari company or I don't know, like laptop company, whatever it is, uh, then it will come under like it will be governed by the central rules.
If that particular thing is mentioned in the central list, then of course, then the central government is the
No, no,
authority.
no, no. Leave aside central list. Leave aside central list. Basis this definition, tell me.
Based on this definition, also, if according to my interpretation, if we read the first line, it says that any industry carried on by or under the authority of central government. So, Ministry of
So you are
Electronics
saying
in
MCA.
not MCA, MEITY, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology.
Hmm.
That
So that is a that is a that department comes under the central government.
but
So
maybe
if there is any dispute with relation to this industry, then it will be the central government who can make rules with
It's
respect
not a
to.
question of dispute. It's a question of which rules. Um, Richa, you want to change your answer, no?
No.
Why not?
As per the definition, whatever is in front of me,
Hmm.
I stick to the original reasoning what I've given.
Hmm. Varun, so MEIT maybe is fine, but then even a company which is not governed by MEITY, okay, is getting its authorization from the Companies Act.
Yes, establishment. I mean, yes, the establishment of a company that is governed by the Companies Act, right? Any
So
company.
so then every company is coming under the so central government.
Yes,
Hmm.
because
Um,
the ROCs who are the ROCs, they are the central government employees. So the company which registers itself with the ROC, that means they are obliging to the central government.
they are state ROCs.
No, they are state ROCs, but they are they are as per doctrine of pleasure, they are under the pleasure of the president. I mean, they are the employees of the central government, the ROCs.
Okay, all of you, all of you will write a note on this. What does this mean? Any industry carried on by or under the authority of central government. Okay, write a note. Research, write a note, and all of you have my email ID. This is not part of your post-class assignment or any assignment. Okay, this is for your understanding and research. I can tell you the answer, uh, but this is fun. Do your own research and send it to me. Okay, what this means and whether all companies are coming under IDA Act or not. Understood? Are
Whether
say
all
yes or
companies
no.
are,
Yes, ma'am.
no, I
What you
mean,
are saying, whether your proposition is true or not.
The last thing you said, that whether all companies are coming under IDA, Industrial Disputes Act. That's what you said. The
Whether they
question
will
you
be,
posed.
yes, yes. Technically, that is how that is what it will be, right? Whether
No,
all
no, no,
companies act will be governed under central government under this, whether it will be considered to be the appropriate government.
no, 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 no. That's not what I'm saying.
Huh.
All the thing which I said regarding the companies and the established, I'm saying that the company is answerable to the central government with respect to its establishment. I mean, the formation of the company, all the
Correct,
uh, uh,
correct.
diligence,
I'm
all
not disputing that. I'm not disputing that. But you're also basis that you are saying that the appropriate government is central government for all companies.
no, not for all companies. That I didn't say. I'm not saying that for all companies. With relation to the Industrial Disputes Act, the appropriate government is the central government. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Then what is it that you're saying?
For industrial disputes, I mean, uh, just as what we have established, that with respect to the Industrial Disputes Act, the thing is clear that any establishment which is mentioned, establishment, the definition of the establishment is was also given, I think, in the act itself. So all the establishments which are mentioned in this act, if in those establishments, if there is an industrial dispute, then the central government has the power to make rules for that thing. In all the establishments which are not mentioned here, in and for those establishments in whichever state they are situated, that particular state is having the authority to make the rules.
Establishment is not defined, industry is defined.
Acha,
This is
okay.
this is the definition of industry.
So right. So mm, all the industries which here are mentioned, only to, I mean, to those industries, this act will
Everything comes
apply.
under this. Industry means any business. So
Any
any
business trade.
company
Okay,
is any business. So any company will of course come under the
right.
definition of this because business is everything. They haven't even said that whether it needs to be for profit or for non-profit. So even a section 8 will be covered under this.
Right, right. So what I'm trying to say is that all the companies, uh,
Hmm.
the Industrial Dispute Act is a general act. I mean, it applies across the companies only, but the act says, but it applies to all the companies. But what the act says is that the particular establishments which are mentioned in this Industrial Disputes Act, on them the rule making power rests with the central government. So any company which is, having which is into these into which is into these businesses which are mentioned in this act, for them central
But
government will make the
every
rules.
every every company will come under this, na? Then Varun, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
Constituted industries carried on
No, I mean,
by
how?
Every company is doing business.
Yes, right, every company is doing business, right?
Every company will be doing business. There is no company which is not doing a business.
Yes,
So
right.
it is falling under that industry. It's
Yes, yes,
meeting the
falling
criteria
under the
of
business.
industry. Then
Yes, right.
by your logic, every company is coming under the authority of central government.
No, I'm saying that every company is doing a business, that's right. But the Industrial Dispute Act says that only these companies which are defined here in the act, on these companies,
Where is the company defined? Company is not defined under the act. Only
appropriate
industry is
government,
defined.
government has
the
So
definition of
appropriate government
appropriate
is
government.
defined here. Huh?
Yes. So
So
in
any
all
industry.
these,
So tell me which. Okay. So tell me which company will not come under the definition.
so the definition is in a negative sense. So all these companies which are mentioned here, I mean, I'm not saying companies, but I'm saying businesses, all the businesses like mines businesses, like this provident fund, all these businesses, for them, the central government will make the rules. But all those businesses which are not mentioned here in this particular
Arey,
appropriate
but they
government
have
list.
not mentioned the particular business only, na? It's a general business.
Yes, it's a general business, right?
See? And they haven't defined what a company is. In this entire act, you will not see company.
Yes, yes, right. So I'm also talking in that sense. I'm also not talking company wise. I'm also saying that all the establishment means all the things which are mentioned in this appropriate government list, all the uh, just a second, like by a railway company and here, all the things which are mentioned here, like a dock labor board, like
So then, if I take
Industrial
that
Finance
logic of
Corporation of India
yours, then
Limited.
if I take that logic of yours, where is IT company fitting?
So that's what I'm saying, that if, but it is my interpretation that
Hmm.
although like Richa said that it is not mentioned here, so a state government may have will have the rule making power. But I'm saying that if I but my interpretation is that when I read the first line, I think mm, uh, here it says that any industry carried on by or under the authority of central government. So IT as a whole industry is, I according to me, what I'm saying is that carried on by the central government. So that's why I think
But
central laws will apply.
reading this and now what you have said, okay?
Hmm.
Tell me, will IT company fall under this central government?
So what all operations the IT company does? I mean, here it says that any industry carried on by or under the authority of central government. So that whole if that in yes, according to me, it will be the central rules because I think that IT industry will be governed by the central rules.
How many of you still agree with this? Guys, either you agree or you disagree. There is no right or wrong answer in law. Always remember, it's only your logic.
Ma'am, I have become confused now
Yeah, same, ma'am.
because I know I was reading a few minutes ago and there is a judgment on this.
Hmm.
But then after so much discussion,
There is a what on this judgment.
yeah, there's a judgment with respect to the classification of workers and employees in IT companies.
That is different.
Hmm.
There you will find a lot of judgments on manager as well, because manager, workmen, employees,
Yes,
you will find a lot of judgments on it because it's very interesting because it's divided on skilled and unskilled and control, and what amounts to all of that is what will define it. So it's definitely a very interesting concept. But we are not on that right now. That judgment will not help you.
Hmm.
There's a threshold also for salary. For an employee to come under this particular act, he has to earn a particular amount of salary. Okay. Tell me, do you guys want to do your own independent research? See, if you
Yes,
only want
ma'am.
to do it, only then will it be of any use. If you don't, then that's also okay because this is extra.
No, no,
But
definitely, ma'am. We need some time. I need some time.
okay, Varun,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I'll also do further diligence on it.
but then I expect a note, okay, because I'm not leaving this because there is going to be another class, I think on 23rd or 22nd. Uh, there is, right? You guys have the schedule.
No, we don't have. I don't think so.
Um, there,
It's
I think
supposed
there,
to be the last one.
yeah, but I think there is another class which is scheduled. But even if there is no class scheduled, will you give me the note by, let's say, today is Saturday. So will all at least four of you give me the note by Wednesday?
Oh, ma'am.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
ma'am,
Varun?
I'll need more time because I'll be traveling in between.
Okay, sure. Tell me, you guys set a deadline and tell me.
Maybe
But I need it.
Till next
But
class.
I need it. And more than me, you will need it. This is very important to understand. I already know the answer, so you guys need to know this, and you guys need to know how to research also this point. Okay. So tell me, when can you give me the this thing?
We have next class before that.
No, we don't have. I think it's not on the portal. The next class is not on the portal.
Next class is not on the portal. Okay. Then give me a note. Tell me what is the deadline to give the note.
I'm fine with Wednesday, ma'am.
No, but Rahman can't do it on Wednesdays. So Rahman, 23rd, is that okay with you?
ma'am.
Rahman,
Yes, ma'am, it will work.
23rd? 23rd
Yes.
is okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. ठीक है, ठीक. Tell me. Tell me what it means by any industry carried on by or under the authority of central government. Okay.
Ma'am, I may go on, like reading it 3 to 4 times. I have one another interpretation.
That's what is happening. Every time we read
You,
a different thing.
you, yes, that is the magic of law. That is the beauty of law. Why don't you read it 100 times? If you have 100 interpretations, you will give me 100 interpretations. I'm fine reading it. But you read it and you tell me an interpretation that you will stick to and tell your client.
So just to cut my work out, I may just give you one another interpretation if you think it's right or not.
No, but I'm not giving any answers right now. Otherwise, I would have given it to you right now.
Sure, sure.
But tell me your
What I think is,
interpretation.
Mhm. So it says that in relation to any industrial dispute concerning any industry carried on by or under the authority of central government means any business which the central government itself is carrying, central government or the authority itself is carrying, which the central government is doing. So in that case, central government will make the rules. Any business in which center is the majority.
You know, the minute you're saying something, everybody is agreeing to what you're saying. The rest of the class, I mean. So, Varun, and all of you, understand what this is, understand this section, and write a note on it and tell me. Okay? Okay. So, where were we? Huh. So, there are three things, right? That is what we had discussed, starting with state, number of employees, and nature of business. Okay? So, now you understand how there is an interplay of state, central, number of employees, nature of business, and all of that is coming into play to determine applicability of which law is going to be applicable.
Yes,
Guys,
ma'am.
हाँ या ना नहीं समझ में आया वो भी ठीक है, then I will explain it more.
Yes, ma'am.
See, another thing is these are specialized. See, Contract Labor Act, okay, or there is something called interstate migrant workers, okay. See, these are special. These are special kind of labors. Uh, it is not necessary um, for a it is not necessary for a company to hire contract laborers, or it is not necessary for a company to hire interstate migrant workers. Okay, these act becomes applicable to it only when they are hiring these category of laborers and they are hiring in the numbers that is prescribed. Okay, for example, in Maharashtra, if you have hired 20 contract laborers in the financial year, the act gets applicable to you. Okay, if you do not have 20, it's below the threshold, let's say it's 19, right? Then it is not going to get applicable and you do not need to do a compliance check for it. Now, see, it's very difficult to figure out whether or not they have actually hired contract laborers or not, or whether they have hired these special categories of laborers for which the act may or may not become applicable. Now, it's not really possible for you to become a Sherlock Holmes and, to go through their office and do that kind of investigation, and that is not even expected out of you. But look, if it was applicable to the company and they have not complied with it, then what will happen? It is going to attract a penalty, right? So for that, you need to have a safeguard provision, of course, in your transaction document, because of that only we are carrying out this diligence exercise. So you are going to, as a precautionary measure or to protect your client, you are going to take a specific representation saying that these acts are not applicable to the company, and you are also going to take a specific indemnity against any penalty if if it is being if the company is liable to pay any penalty under these acts because it has not complied with these acts. Okay. Now, again, see, labor laws, environmental laws, consents, everything. It will depend on the very nature. It will depend on, again, the transaction of the document, right? See, if you're doing a business transfer agreement or a slum sale, right? See, the purchasers of the units or the purchaser of the business, okay, will not be made liable for not having maintained registers because they were not even in pictures there, right? So they cannot. So the very idea of them being penalized for not maintaining registers and all of that is very remote. The penalty passing on to the purchasers becomes very remote, right? So because of which checking registers and all of that is not really of great importance under for a business transfer agreement. But nowadays the trend is, or sometimes the client does ask you to check for these for the purposes of continuity so that they know what all registers are missing and they have to start maintaining. Okay, so these are certain things that you need to be careful about. Now, in penalty also, like in labor laws, uh, some penalties are very specific to certain legislations. For example, in EPF, okay, they specifically say that if you're transferring the business and there is a liability because you have not paid the contributions and all of that, that liability is also getting transferred to the purchaser. However, his liability is limited to the price of the unit. Okay, so these are the things that you need to check, like highlight the penalties and all of that. It becomes it is crucial to important. It's crucial to highlight those in your DD report. Okay. Now, also sometimes uh, companies are in a habit to say कि नहीं ये तो मेरे पे applicable ही नहीं है, like because there are so many licenses and approvals, you'll keep on asking and they'll keep on saying नहीं ये तो मेरे पे applicable ही नहीं है, ये तो applicable ही नहीं है, हम ये सब करते ही नहीं है. तो यहाँ पे दो चीज है, ठीक है. एक आपका लीगल इंटरप्रिटेशन है. You read an act and you see that no, this will be applicable to this particular company. Okay. If there is a conflict regarding application between you and the company says ki, no, this act is not applicable to us, but you think it is applicable to them and they need to take a consent under it, you will highlight that in your report that this act is applicable and we think that they need to take a license under it. This, from my personal experience, one of the transactions, this became a huge fight. So they were a oil refinery kind of a company, okay? Basis our analysis of their activity, we thought one of the environmental laws are getting applicable to them. So that was a bit of a convoluted environmental law as well, and the compliances under it was quite a lot. And the company did not want to take a license under it, and they kept on fighting us back, saying that this is not applicable to us, and none of the industries which is engaged in their activity has taken that consent. So it's not even an industry norm to take a consent. But still, okay, because it is your, even if it is not an industrial norm to take a consent, does not make it correct. Always remember that. Okay, if in your interpretation and legally, if you see that it needs to be taken, then it needs to be taken and it needs to be highlighted. Okay, that is that is one case where your this applicability gets into kind of a dispute between you and the company. The other part is you do not really need to go to their premises and do a Sherlock Holmes kind of an investigation. That is not the purpose, as I said earlier. But there are connecting things. Okay, like if you read a document, there will be connecting things, right? For example, one time we were doing this. Uh, due diligence for factory. Now, if you read Factories Act, you will see that uh, beyond a certain number of employees, they are supposed to give you they are supposed to keep a medical facility, right? A kind of a where they need to keep first aid kit, band-aid, and all of that. Like it needs to be there for the safety of the workers. Okay. So we had asked the company ki biomedical waste, whether that is applicable, like whether they have taken an authorization of under biomedical waste or not. Company said it's not applicable to us. I mean, by first glance, of course, it's not applicable to a factory which is manufacturing steel, right? But since under Factories Act, they're supposed to have a medical facility, and they did have a medical facility, which we confirmed. They were they were discarding medical waste. Even a small syringe, a band-aid, all of that is considered to be medical waste under biomedical waste rules. And if you're doing that, you need to take an authorization under biomedical waste rules. So that is how we figured out कि no, you will have to take an authorization under biomedical waste rules. Okay. So these are the things, or this is how you interconnect between certain activities of the company with the rest of it. Okay, do not blindly uh, accept what the company is saying. Do not think कि नहीं नहीं मुझे तो उनके premise में जाके ही सब कुछ पता चलेगा. You get to know a lot if you read in detail the documents which they have provided. Do not uh, come to a conclusion whether the act is applicable or not just by the name of the act or just by your perception of what the act is going to be applicable to. Always read the applicability and when it's getting triggered and when it is applicable. Okay, so that's how you interconnect different parts and departments and activities of a company to come to a conclusion whether certain acts are applicable to it or not. Um, for example, very recently, I was doing a diligence where the company said petrol is not applicable. Okay. Uh, I mean, it happily said that it's not using petrol, so it's not applicable to them, and they do not need any license under Petrol Act. But when we were doing consents of other things, one of the things that came out is that it has DG sets. In a factory, will always have DG sets. Now, for DG sets, you need petrol of quite a quantity to run those DG sets. So, of course, they needed petrol. So, these are the things that you need to be mindful of. So these are the things you need to be mindful of and keep your eyes open and look for these things. Okay, these things are not going to come overnight. Maybe these things comes with a lot of experience and doing a lot of DD, and that's when you understand how to interconnect maybe different things. But yes, this will definitely give you a kickstart, right? Because you know that these are the things to look for and these are the things that you have to be careful about. Any question till here? Any question? Finding it interesting? Finding it boring?
Interesting, ma'am. Like I did not think so deep. Even when you asked about that state and center, I had researched on Maternity Benefit Act 1961 and the associated labor laws related to women employment, but I did not think from this angle. So I really lacked that. But now I'm like, yeah, I got a new perspective. We need to delve deep while reading the act.
Very important, huh? Very important. Okay. And also interconnection. Always remember that interconnection part. Okay. Uh, that is what makes diligence interesting actually. Like, interconnecting something to something else and like, getting the entire picture. That's what it makes so interesting. At least to me, it always did. So yeah, okay. So that is a brief outline. Um, so this is a brief outline of what you need to see. Okay, understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions? Any doubts?
But I realized there are so many crossovers of the acts, like interrelated things. So suddenly,
Labor
maybe
laws, yes. Labor laws, yes.
labor law. So we need to perfect ourselves in labor law also.
You need to have a working knowledge of labor law,
Yeah.
not perfect. You need to have a working knowledge to understand what are the compliances. Because look, labor laws is a completely different ball game altogether. Okay, just like IP is. If it's a huge transaction or a very big transaction, it is the labor law team of the law firm. And if you're working in a big law firm, it is the labor law team that is going to do this part of the diligence. If it's a
Okay.
small transaction, and your partner does not want to uh, outsource it to the labor law team, you are expected to do this, and you are expected to know how to do this. Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you cannot say, no, I'm a corporate lawyer, and like you as a corporate lawyer, you need to have working knowledge of actually every law. Like if you see diligence itself, you need to have a working knowledge of real estate. You need to have a working knowledge of IP. You need to have a working knowledge of labor laws. And once you do a diligence, you get to know about so many laws. Like I think that's one of the best takeaways of doing diligence in your like starting on. You need to have a working knowledge of environmental laws as well. And all of this also helps you when you're helping a company to form, because they'll always come to you for guidance on compliances for all of this. So if it is not a huge organization, not complicated, these are the knowledges that is going to help you set it up, right? Varun, I will be waiting for your interpretations, all of you. I am eagerly waiting for the interpretations of this. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Rahman, you have done diligence before, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, Rahman, since you have done a diligence before, do you think this course would have helped you in doing it better anyway, or do you think no? You can give an honest answer.
It was quite early when I did, and
Hmm.
this would have aided me.
Hmm. So this would have helped you the knowledge and the way this is being taught in this class. Would this have helped you better to do it better?
But to an extent, yes.
Okay. ठीक है, guys. Do complete the assignment. Do read. Do watch the videos. Watch it patiently. Uh, I have just given you an introduction. There are other concepts also which is explained. Like other things other issues that will crop up in your diligence. Only to that extent. Again, please understand that the labor laws that is explained in these videos is only limited from a diligence perspective, labor laws is huge, huge, huge. It's a different ball game, different sea, different universe altogether. And there are different courses for labor laws. Just like we have one on corporate law, there are like courses which are on labor laws as well, right? But this is not going into the nitty-gritties and the explaining it to you in depth because that is not required because this is not a labor law course. This is only from very limited from the diligence perspective. Okay, ठीक है? So keeping that in mind, I expect your note. I expect your post-class assignment as well. Okay, I expect all of that. So I'm guessing this will conclude our diligence class. So how did you find this class, guys? If you guys can give an honest feedback on it. Richa, you joined late. I think you will be honest. Tell me.
Uh, yes, and my field is also a little bit different from this because I've only handled IT.
Hmm.
And this has been really, an eye-opening session for me. Good that I've done it because it is I can use it on day-to-day basis also because I'm already dealing with startups.
Hmm.
So somehow while reading all this, so I got to know a lot how to handle the startups better.
Hmm.
The basic like the cap table and all those things and all the policies and all that. Especially the cap table one has helped me a lot in understanding and helping the startups there.
Okay. Good. Good to hear. Varun, Shruti.
Ma'am, I think this was quite helpful because the things that you told in class, even though I followed them, but then I think I might be looking at the recordings, I think thrice or four times to learn more because every time I've attended the class, I think you told so much of so many things that I think even though I was listening, but I think I've missed few things I need to revise them because there's so much to learn from these videos. And when you mention those particulars, like you need to mention this is the format of writing, this is the way of writing.
What I can add is it's not easy. This is very tough. I mean, yeah, it's rigorous. Tough in the sense like it's rigorous. One reading is not going to help you capture all the things. So I've only done one reading, now going to the second reading. So that is helping me to encapsulate a lot more things. So that way it's very rigorous. Not rigorous on our part.
Hmm. I think Shruti, you have frozen. Shruti? Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Varun?
Yes, ma'am. The course is, of course, very helpful, and all the things
I'm not asking
which
for a praise, okay? It's not that I'm trying to take a praise out of you guys. I'm asking for an honest feedback. So if you think that no, this lacked it somewhere or something like that, you can be honest, okay? We are not going to cut marks on your assignment basis there.
no, I am being honest. I mean, actually, of course, it is helping. The course is helping. I mean, I'm learning a lot of things. Particularly, I'm not into the corporate side. I don't know a thing about. I mean, a little bit things, but not. I don't know things in detail. So this course has definitely helped me in seeing how the deal process works, how the M&A thing goes on. So from that point of view, it is of course very helpful.
Rahman?
As I said earlier, ma'am, it has improved my because after doing about two corporate intensive, then I moved to litigation.
Hmm.
This has helped me keep that balance of both the ends.
I think Shruti has joined back.
Yes, ma'am. Due to network issues, I just was logged out. Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. ठीक है, Shruti. You do look at the videos again. ठीक है, anyway, you guys are getting stuck something as I always say, please reach out. ठीक है?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I
ठीक है
was
चलो
saying and then I was locked out. Did you tell anything after that?
No, no, I was just trying to understand whether this course has helped you or not. So I was
Okay.
just talking about that to everyone. ठीक है
Okay, ma'am. Yeah.
ठीक है चलो bye guys, good night, happy learning,
Good night.
happy weekend,
Thank you.
and do the research, read it, do the research and get back. Okay?
Sure, ma'am.
And
Thank
please
you.
tell us how to do the research in a better way. Like we are not used to doing this research, especially I'm not used to. So if you can tell us that would be helpful.
You find out case laws. You will first read the act, read the definitions, find out case laws. It will be clear.
Okay.
Don't do Google. Don't do Google.
Okay.
If you guys have access to SCC or if you guys have access to Manupatra or like the case law this thing or LexisNexis, like I'm guessing SCC is a good search base. So do your research. Don't Google. In one of my interviews, I was asked how you research. Like they had asked me the methodology of research.
Yeah.
And I had said that I first read the act. First, I'm reading the sections related to it. Then I read everything because only one section will never give you the answer, right? So you will need to read everything related to that, the definitions, the rules, and then try to find the relevant case law. That's the way how I do it. I'll first understand it, what it is trying to say. Then I'll do a case law research and just see what is the interpretation. And they had asked me also, do you see Google? Like, do you go by Google research? Or for that matter, blogs. Even if you're referring to blogs, okay, and it's okay to refer to blogs, refer to good blogs, not just any lawyer's blog. I'm not trying to demean anyone here, but the interpretation of good law firms, like if you have like read interpretations of them, chances are they're the correct interpretation only from that perspective, and the articles are far well written. Okay, but don't go to like Cyril Amarchand and say, oh, I get all my information from blogs written by Sam. Like, don't do that. I don't think that will be taken kindly. Okay?
Okay.
Chalo. Bye guys.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Okay, bye.